You ever wonder how your body turns that delicious slice of pizza or that morning cup of coffee into the energy that powers your every move? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of cellular respiration, the process that breaks down food molecules to produce the energy currency of life, ATP. Hello and welcome to the Coco Note podcast. I'm your host, Coco. Today we're talking about cellular respiration, what it is, why it's so crucial, and how your cells turn glucose into usable energy through a series of incredible biochemical steps. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear picture of how your body keeps the lights on at the cellular level, and maybe even impress your friends with some science trivia at your next dinner party. So, what exactly is cellular respiration? At its core, it's the pathway your cells use to break down food molecules, primarily glucose, to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which powers nearly all metabolic activities in eukaryotic and many prokaryotic organisms. Along the way, water and carbon dioxide are released as byproducts. Think of it as your body's very own power plant, converting fuel into electricity. Now, cellular respiration can happen in two ways, aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic respiration requires oxygen, the kind of respiration most of us rely on every second of the day. Anaerobic respiration, on the other hand, kicks in when oxygen is scarce or absent. Ever felt that burning sensation in your muscles after sprinting? That's anaerobic respiration at work, producing energy without oxygen but also creating lactate, which can cause those infamous cramps. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's quickly revisit a key concept: redox reactions. These are chemical reactions where electrons are transferred between molecules. When a molecule loses electrons, it's oxidized. When it gains electrons, it's reduced. Cellular respiration is packed with these redox reactions, as electrons are stripped from glucose and eventually handed off to oxygen, forming water. The overall chemical equation for cellular respiration looks like this: C6H12O6, glucose, plus 6O2 plus 32 add plus 32 pi right arrow 6H2O plus 6CO2 plus 32 ATP. In simpler terms, glucose and oxygen combine to produce water, carbon dioxide, and a whopping 32 ATP molecules. But here's a fun fact. If you just burned glucose in a test tube, all that energy would be released as heat, not very useful for a cell. Instead, cells carefully harvest energy in steps, capturing it in ATP molecules through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. Cellular respiration unfolds in three main stages: glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation leading into the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle, and the electron transport system. Most of this action happens inside the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, except for glycolysis, which takes place in the cytosol. Let's start with glycolysis, which literally means sugar splitting. This is where glucose, a 6-carbon sugar, is broken down into two 3-carbon molecules called pyruvate. Glycolysis happens in 10 enzyme-driven steps and can be divided into two phases: energy investment and energy harvesting. In the energy investment phase, the cell uses two ATP molecules to modify glucose into a more reactive form. Then, in the energy harvesting phase, the cell produces 4 ATP molecules and 2 NADH molecules, electron carriers that will shuttle electrons to the next stages. So, net gain: 2 ATP per glucose molecule. Not bad for a process that doesn't even need oxygen. Here's a cool regulatory tidbit. The enzyme phosphofructokinase controls a key step in glycolysis. When ATP levels are high, it slows down glycolysis, a classic example of feedback inhibition. When energy is low, it speeds up again. It's like your cell's way of saying, hey, don't waste energy making energy if we already have enough. Now, what happens to pyruvate after glycolysis? If oxygen is plentiful, pyruvate enters the mitochondria and undergoes oxidative decarboxylation, a fancy term for removing a carbon dioxide molecule and preparing it for the Krebs cycle by attaching it to coenzyme A, forming acetyl-CoA. The Krebs cycle is a series of 8 enzyme-catalyzed reactions that further break down acetyl-CoA, releasing carbon dioxide and transferring electrons to NAD+ and FAD, forming NADH and FADH2. These electron carriers are like little energy-packed taxis, ready to deliver their passengers to the electron transport system. Speaking of which, the electron transport system, ETS, is where the magic of ATP production really happens. Located in the inner mitochondrial membrane, the ETS is a chain of protein complexes and mobile carriers that pass electrons along, releasing energy used to pump protons across the membrane. This creates a proton gradient, a kind of stored energy known as proton motive force. At the end of the chain, oxygen acts as the final electron acceptor, combining with electrons and protons to form water. Without oxygen, this whole system grinds to a halt, which is why we need to breathe. The proton gradient powers ATP synthase, an enzyme that spins like a tiny turbine, using the flow of protons back into the mitochondrial matrix to synthesize ATP from ADP and inorganic phosphate. This process, called chemiosmosis, was proposed by Peter Mitchell, who won a Nobel Prize for this brilliant insight. All told, one molecule of glucose can yield about 32 ATP molecules through cellular respiration. That's a lot of energy packed into a tiny molecule. But it's not 100% efficient. Only about 34% of the energy in glucose is converted to ATP. The rest is lost as heat, which, by the way, helps keep our body temperature steady. So next time you feel warm, thank your mitochondria for working hard. And cellular respiration isn't just about glucose. Your body can also break down fats and proteins for energy. Fats, for example, are broken down into glycerol and fatty acids, which enter glycolysis and the Krebs cycle at different points. Proteins are deaminated, and their components feed into various stages of the cycle. Before we wrap up, let's think about how cellular respiration compares to photosynthesis. Both involve redox reactions and electron transport chains, but photosynthesis stores energy by building glucose, while cellular respiration breaks glucose down to release energy. It's like two sides of the same coin, one capturing energy from sunlight, the other releasing it for life's work. So, what's the big takeaway here? Cellular respiration is a complex, finely tuned process that powers life by converting food into usable energy. It's regulated to match the cell's needs, adaptable to oxygen availability, and essential for everything from muscle movement to brain function. Next time you're feeling energized, remember the tiny mitochondria inside your cells working overtime to keep you going. For more, visit coconote.app to see the full summary or create more Coconote podcasts. As always, it's a wonderful thing to have the privilege to use your brain and learn something new. I'm your host, Coco, and I'll see you next time.